there, my name is Caitlin Bandy and this is my channel BandysBooks, and today we are here to do a quarter of the year book mail, book haul sort of a video. So I used to do a book mail video every single month, and I realized it was just kind of repetitive and tedious, and so now I just save it for every quarter. So I'm going to show you all of the books that I have received in the mail for the last 3 months. Some of them are books that I've purchased, mostly the ones that are from Book of the Month, and some of them are books that I have received from publishers, from Goodreads giveaways, from collaborations, and things like that. So hopefully you find this interesting. I'm not going to go into super great detail about every single book, just a very brief summary of each. Otherwise, this video might end up really, really long. So we're going to start with my Book of the Month boxes, and we're going to start with the April, since that's our current month. I got a copy of The Adventures of Amina al-Sirafi. I read this as an ARC and I absolutely loved it. So when I saw that there was a nice hardcover copy available through Book of the Month, I went ahead and picked it up. This is a fantasy about a badass female pirate. She's middle-aged, she has a kid, she's retired from the pirating game, and then she gets called in by an offer that she can't refuse, and she goes on an epic journey. I really enjoyed this one. So if you're looking for some good fantasy, I've been raving about it for the last month and a half. Definitely check it out. And then I got Camp Zero by Michelle Min Sterling. I've actually already read this one. If you want to see a full-scale review, take a look up here somewhere. This is a post-apocalyptic climate change disaster type sci-fi kind of a fic. I have very mixed feelings about it, so definitely check out the review for more details. And then I got Hang the Moon by Jeanette Walls. I've read Glass Castle and Half Broke Horses by Jeanette Walls. I love her writing. I was very excited to see that this was a fiction release, and I am really looking forward to getting into this one. And then my March Book of the Month box. So I wasn't super excited about March's Book of the Month picks. I did really want to read one book, but the rest of them I was just kind of so-so about. So I picked out the one I really wanted to read. I took a shot on a second book that I didn't know anything about, and then I used my third pick to get a book that's been on my back order list for quite a while. So that book was Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain. This is one of my all-time favorite books. As a chef and as a traveler, I resonate with this book very, very deeply. And so I was really excited to be able to finally get a nice hardcover copy of it to add to my bookshelves. The book that I was really excited about was Lone Woman by Victor LaValle. I read The Changeling earlier this year, which I really, really loved, and I'm very excited to get into more of Victor LaValle's writing. I think this is going to be a pretty interesting, creepy, sort of a thriller horror type scenario. We have a woman that moves out into the American West and is trying to earn some land from the government. They basically say she can get some land for free if she's willing to farm it and work it. But even though she thinks she's alone out there, she's not really. There's something that's followed her, and I'm looking forward to this. If you've read LaValle's work, you'll know that he mixes a lot of elements of reality with horror and fantasy, and yeah, I'm here for it. And then the book that I was just so about is The Last Russian Doll by Kristen Loesch. I know nothing about this book. I believe it's historical fiction, and it's a young girl that lives in Moscow with a family. One summer night, everything changes, and all that remained of the family were the girl and her mother. So I think this is going to follow like what happened to her family, how they died, and then what happens to them afterwards. I haven't actually, even since this book released, heard much about it. I don't know too many people that have read it. It's still a bit of a mystery to me. I'm hoping probably in the next couple months I'll get into it, and hopefully it'll be good. I do really like the cover though. I think it's really pretty, and I don't have a lot of yellow books on my shelf, so it's a nice addition. For February, I was super excited about my selections. This was probably one of my favorite boxes this year so far. And that's because it had Mame by Jessica George, which I really enjoyed. This is about a young woman who is struggling with her familial expectations and the reality of her life, and she's trying to find her way in the world. It's super good, super well written, a lot of really interesting commentary on women's sexuality, caring for family members that are ill, finding our own place under the burden of cultural expectations. I don't really know anyone that hasn't enjoyed this to some degree. I have a full-scale review up here if you're interested in checking it out. And then it had River Sing Me Home by Eleanor Shearer. This book I wanted to like more than I did. I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was a bad read, but I definitely think it had pacing issues and structural issues that could have made it an excellent book. If you want to hear more about that one, look up here, but it's about a woman whose children are sold away from her in slavery, and once slavery ends in the Caribbean, she sets off on a journey to find out what happened to all of them. I wanted it to be more moving than it is, but again, it's a very interesting bit of history. Even if it's not the most perfectly written book ever, it's, I think, still worthwhile. And then I got Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. I have yet to read this one. This is about a couple named Yasmin and Josiah. They thought that their love was going to last forever, and now they're going through a divorce, and they're just not prepared for how life is falling apart in the face of the collapse of their marriage. I've heard good things about this. I anticipate it being good. I don't read a whole lot of books about relationships and romance and stuff, but because this is more about the end of a romance than the beginning, I think that this will be a good read for me. And then my January book box. I have Queen of Thieves by B.Z. Marsh. I believe this is a historical thriller. It is set in London, 1946. The city is struggling to rebuild itself after the devastation of the Blitz. Alice Diamond, the Queen of Thieves, rules over her all-female gang with a bejeweled fist. Her hoisters are expert shoplifters scourging London's upscale boutiques and department stores. So this sounds amazing. I haven't heard a ton about this one either, but I am here for a roving gang of female thieves. I think this sounds like such a cool plot. And then I got Independence by Chitra Banerjee Diva Karuni. And this, from what I understand, is about the Indian and Pakistani partition via several different sisters. I think there's 3 of them. I've heard mixed reviews on this one. I've heard from some people that it was really good and some people that it was like a little rushed and maybe just a little too short. As you can see, it's a very small book, so a lot of subject matter to cover in a very short span of time. And then the third book that I had in that book of the month box was Thistlefoot by Jenna Rose Nethercott. And that one I read, it was good, but I decided to go ahead and let it be rehomed to a family that might appreciate it a little more. It was kind of a quirky, interesting fantasy fairy tale sort of a story about 2 siblings and magic and a house with chicken legs that moves around, and it was interesting for sure. I'm not quite sure how to organize my thoughts around it. There were elements that I really loved and elements that were just so-so for me. So after I read it, I went ahead and passed it along to the next reader. So that was all of my book of the month books. Now we're going to talk about ARCs and things that I was sent throughout the year. So first, we're going to talk about something really cool that happened earlier this year. And that was that Aardvark Book Club reached out to me. They're a newer book club. They started at the end of last year. And they wanted to send me a free box so I could check out some of their products. They hand selected 3 books for me and packaged them up with some bookmarks in a pretty cool box and sent them my way. And I was so excited to check this out. I'm a big fan of book clubs, as you can tell. And it's a lot of joy for me every single month getting to see what books get selected for publication in these clubs. And so Aardvark, kindly sent me a custom curated box to get an idea of what they're about. And I was not disappointed. The books that they picked out for me were so cool. So they sent me The New Life by Tom Crew. This is a book about sexual exploration and sexual revolution. We have a gentleman who is potentially bisexual that wants to explore his attraction to men. We have a couple that's in a marriage that wants to explore a bit of polyamory. And this is at a time, I want to say it's like in the 1800s. Yeah, it's like 1894 or so, where that's not really the norm or accepted. And so it's going to explore, culturally what that means. Then we have The Dream Builders by Owendrilla Mukherjee. This is a book that is set in India, follows a character named Manika. She's been living in the US for many, many years, and then she returns to India, and she visits her father in the city of Hirshipur, and that's kind of where she grew up, and she's come to realize that everything is completely different from what she remembers. And it takes an unexpected tragic event for Manika and those around her to realize just how fragile this life is. Sounds really good. I love this cover. I'm super obsessed with it. And then the third book they sent me was Sink by Joseph Earl Thomas. This is a series of vignettes about his own experiences and survival and how geek culture kind of helped him through life. I have heard really good things about this from people that have reviewed it so far, and I'm really looking forward to getting into this one soon. I also really enjoy the cover of it. I feel like it's kind of quirky and unique. So great selections from Aardvark. If you'd like to see my full unboxing of this box, look up here. I did a whole video on it, talked about the books in depth and everything. And now we're going to talk about ARCs. So I have some ARCs that I was sent from Goodreads and some that I was sent from different publication houses. And the next ARC that I've received was This Other Eden by Paul Harding. He was the winner of the Pulitzer Prize, and this book sounds super interesting. This book follows a once thriving racial utopia in its final days. I'm used to reading about dystopias, not utopias, so I'm curious to see how it's imagined. Immediately when I read the word utopia, my mind goes to a sinister place. Like, I feel like it's a trick and that the utopia is going to turn out to be a dystopia. I think this deals a lot with race and mercy and human forgiveness and things like that. I am really curious to get into this one, and it's a very short book, so it shouldn't be hard to knock out. So one of the books that I received from Penguin Random House was Before We're Innocent by Ella Berman. This is a thriller. It's releasing very soon, and it is about some friends. We have Joni and Bess and Evangeline. Evangeline dies while on a trip in Greece, and Joni and Bess are accused of her murder. They are eventually acquitted and they return home. 10 years down the road, we have Joni living in Los Angeles, and she's been accused of something strikingly similar to Evangeline's murder. She calls up Bess and asks for moral support, but this time Bess just isn't so sure about it. Sounds super good. I'm here for it. I love a thriller. I love a murder mystery. I love the drama between friends and all that kind of stuff. I think this is going to be a good read. And then I received the book Bird Girl, Looking to the Skies in Search of a Better Future by Maya Rose Craig. So I believe this is a memoir, and it's about Maya Rose's experiences being known as the Bird Girl. Her and her family kind of set off in travels around the world to search out new species of birds. And it also dives into her mother's mental health crisis and how nature comes to the rescue time and time again. This sounds really interesting. I got to do some pretty cool bird watching when I was in South America, so I can definitely understand the fascination with birds and different species and wanting to seek them out. I am looking forward to getting into this. This sounds like it's going to be a really interesting read. Then I've just recently received 2 books from Seal Press. I received Who Cares? The Hidden Crisis of Caregiving and How We Solve It by Emily Kenway. So this for me is a super interesting topic. So I don't want to get too deep into this topic at this very moment, but I did help with both my grandfather and my grandfather's palliative care when they were at the end of their lives. So I have experience with caregiving from a personal level, but during the pandemic, when all of the restaurants here in Las Vegas were closed, I also worked in a office that coordinated caregivers for seniors and disabled folks, and mostly focused on low-income seniors and low-income disabled folks. And we were focused on personal care more than medical care. But I saw that there was just this massive gap in elder care in general. And I think that this book is going to touch on a lot of the things that I have personally witnessed, both from, like I said, my personal experiences dealing with it in terms of my grandparents, but also from the work aspect of it and seeing how people fall through the gaps. There is absolutely a shortage of caregivers in the United States, and what caregivers do exist are drastically and grossly underpaid. So I think that this is going to talk a lot about that, and I'm really interested to see what this author has to say. And it proposes that there's a solution to it, so I'm curious to see what that solution is. Also from Seal Press, I received Without Children, The Long History of Not Being a Mother by Peggy O'Donnell Hethington. This sounds like a super interesting title to me. I have never really resonated with the idea of being a mother, but on top of it, I also have a reproductive disorder that is a leading cause of infertility in women. And it's likely that even if I wanted to have kids, I wouldn't be able to do so without serious medical intervention. I'm okay with that, so no sob story there. But what I do find interesting is how often I have to defend that decision to people. Not my family or people that know me well, but just strangers, people that I meet, like, briefly, that ask about my reproductive decisions. Oh, do you have kids? If so, why not? And then when I tell them that it's just not in the cards, how often they're like shocked and appalled. So I love a book called The Long History of Not Being a Mother because I think there are so many amazing things that women can do besides just being a mom. Of course, being a mom is an incredibly important role, and I'm not trying to downplay that for women that want to do that. I just am happy to see books that celebrate women that don't do that as well. And finally, the book that I think I'm most excited about is from Henry Holt, and that is The Secret Diaries of Charles Ignatius Sancho by Patterson Joseph. I'm just going to read you the summary off of the back of this because it sounds so good. 1746, and Georgian London is not a safe place for a young black man. Charles Ignatius Sancho must dodge slave catchers, and worse, his main ally, a kindly duke who taught him to write, is dying. Sancho is desperate and utterly alone. So how does the same Charles Ignatius Sancho meet the king, write and play highly acclaimed music, find his beloved Anne, become the first black person to vote in Britain, and lead the fight to end slavery? So I think this book is going to answer all of those questions, and I'm so excited. It sounds so good. I know a lot about the history of slavery in the United States, but I don't know nearly as much about the history of slavery in the UK. So I think this is going to be a learning experience for me. I love to read things like this and expand my knowledge, and I think this is obviously a very important piece of history. I'm very much looking forward to getting into this one, and I'm so grateful for Henry Holt for sending me an ARC copy. So that's the end of my book mail for the first quarter of the year. Hopefully this was interesting to you to see what I picked out from Book of the Month and what I received from publishers and collaborations. This, of course, does not include any of the ARCs or audiobooks that I've received on NetGalley. I probably have about 60 books sitting available on NetGalley at the moment that I need to work my way through. I just, for the sake of this video, only wanted to cover physical copies because otherwise we would literally be here for 5 hours going through books. So hopefully you found this interesting. If you did, hit the thumbs up, comment down below and let me know, do you receive ARCs? If so, what was the last ARC that you received? And if not, what is an ARC of a book that you'd really love to get? And if you're not already subscribed to this channel, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button down below as well as the notification bell so that you never miss a video and we can see each other again soon. Thanks so much for joining. Bye.